I'd like to introduce Kevin Fletcher of KW Commercial. Kevin's going to present the Central Maine market forecast.
Good morning. I'm not quite as shocked by the bright lights as I was last year, but Paul, you are right. They are very bright. I like following Justin because I always get to refer back to the other half of Maine that everybody always forgets about. I'm honored here to be here today to talk to you about the Central Maine market. I will say as well, it took a lot of work to pull this together. I want to thank a few people from my office, Kelly Gabloff, Shannon Seelig, and Tanya Fry for helping me pull this together. So today I'll provide you with some detailed analysis of the commercial inventory in the market, some pending sale data throughout Lewis and Auburn, Greater Augusta, and the Waterville market. We'll talk briefly about some notable transactions, some of the developments taking place, and finally I'll wrap up with some projections and some forecasts, and I will not get into the Patriot game. So don't be alarmed by this slide, but I did want to put it in there. I'm a data guy. I like to take a look at the data. And it was pretty interesting. This information is coming from the Maine Real Estate Information System, what we refer to as the MLS. And for Androscoggin and Kennebec counties, there were 232 properties available in the MLS, and the price ranged between $32,500 and $5.2 million. This is from the time of the report. Obviously, this may have changed over the last couple of weeks. There have been 20 pending sales and 72 properties sold in 2017 with a price between $13,500. That was a big deal. And $2,060,000. If you do the math out, that equates out to about 3 years of inventory. Taking a look at those same numbers on $500,000 and above, we've got 54 properties available, 5 pending, and 8 sold, or 6 years of inventory. Again, I just want to note out that's as reported in the Maine Multiple Listing Service, so not everything is obviously reported in the MLS, and certainly off-market or transaction deals happen that aren't in there. Looking at the same kind of category on the leasing side as reported in the Maine Commercial Property Exchange, and there's a nuance between the MLS and the Commercial Property Exchange, as leasing is not a licensed activity in the state of Maine, but we won't get into that. The commercial leasing in Lewis and Auburn, and again, this is apples to oranges. Sometimes, not all spaces, industrial, they've office and retail, and space sizes, but there are 103 lease spaces available, and this was really an interesting number. Only 16 leases were completed in 2017 in Lewis and Auburn. In Greater Augusta, those numbers range between 68 leases available and 11 were completed in 2017. Having said that, and having worked the market for the last 20 years, I will tell you there's still very strong pockets of space that are very difficult to find, depending on the size of the space you're looking for in an industrial market, or even office, where Lewis and Auburn may not be the strongest office market. Depending on the size of the space the tenant's looking for, sometimes we really struggle trying to find that space. So Lewis and Auburn, I've talked about this in the past. I'm a big fan, but there's, what's driving the economy in LA? We've got a population of over 100,000 people in the immediate surrounding communities. Over 500,000 people in Lewis and Auburn live within 30 miles. That's 40% of the state population within what we would classify as an hour drive. We're driven by medical, certainly with CMMC and St. Mary's. And we quickly over the last, I say quickly, right, over 10 or 15 years became a distribution and warehouse hub throughout Lewis and Auburn with companies like Hart, Walmart, P&G. We've got 5 colleges and over 6,000 students, and obviously the shameless plug for always with Norway Savings Bank being the only Twin Sheets ice arena in the state of Maine. So some notable transactions. 445 Sabata Street in Lewiston was probably the biggest sought-after development site in central Maine for the last 10 years, and Chris Pazik finally pulled that development site off in that sale. With Jay Wise, it sold for just over $2 million. And interestingly enough, the opposite corner, 409 and 425 Sabata Street, is a gas station, sold this year as well for $800,000 by Ed Herzig and Dustin Booten. In early 2017, I sold 586 Lewiston Junction Road. That's a 120,000 square foot industrial building for Cascade Form Fiber for $2 million. And then closing out the end of the year, I sold 24 Landry Road in Lewiston, which was a $1 million off-market investment deal, and 1120 Center Street sold to the same buyer from the same seller. That 1120 is a mixed use for $600,000. 96 Commercial Street. This is probably a good segue from what Justin was just talking regarding the industrial sector. 96 Commercial Street sold for $26,000 over the asking price in a multiple offer situation for medical cannabis. And that property was co-brokered with Tom Gadbois of F.O. Bailey. We'll breeze through some leases for the Central Maine Market. 75 Westminster, Craig Young leased 47,000 square feet there. Tom Dunham put together an industrial lease for $32,000 at 1 Gendron. Tim Millett with CBRE leased 12,600 square feet of medical office space at 10 Falcon Road. And then I'll kind of skip through and save some time and skip through some of the other ones, but you can see them there. There's been some exciting developments underway in Lewiston, Auburn. Geiger started their 105,000 square foot corporate headquarter renovation. If you drive by just before exit 80, and you can see their solar array, they put in solar panels to drive the electrical use there, and that was pretty impressive. Compounding Solutions is increasing their site at 40,000 square feet of industrial space. We mentioned briefly the retail development on the corner of East Avenue and Sabatis. That's being turned into, I call it the mega Walmart convenience stores, right? The 16-bay gas station, car wash. There'll be fast food on that site. Dave Gendron continues the development of the Promenade Mall. We spoke briefly about that redevelopment last year. And some exciting news out of Lisbon. A developer, Premier Development, purchased a 48.9 acre former gravel pit and has turned that into a single-family subdivision with 33 lots, a cluster of market rate apartments. Phase 1 is virtually sold out, and the total development there in Lisbon is just over $10 million. We talked over the last couple of years about the Riverfront Island in Lewiston. I think it's, it poses, despite what we talked about earlier, it poses some opportunity on this area. The Hartley Block project, which we mentioned last year, is getting ready to start construction in February 2018. Maple Way Dental, that's a renovation of the former Camden Bank building on Canal. That's open for business. Rink Advertising is officially open for business. And the redevelopment at 197 Lisbon Street, the Scruton Block, is currently underway. The facade's been taken down, and that's boarded up. So that's, they've started the construction on the inside of that. Greater Augusta. So not only this year, they said, do Lewiston Auburn, they said, okay, let's talk about Augusta too. So driving the economy in Augusta. 70,000 people call Greater Augusta home, 18,000 in Augusta proper. This was I really like this fact. 750 businesses and industries and organizations are members of the Kennebec Valley Chamber of Commerce. They're doing really well up there. The Marketplace in Augusta, the largest open-air shopping mall north of Boston, and Augusta Crossing itself has 450,000 square feet of retail space. So here's some notable transactions for Augusta. Greg Hastings and Chris Pazik brokered 80 Anthony Avenue in Augusta for $1.9 million. That's an industrial market. So again, referring back to what Justin said, the industrial market in southern Maine is strong. People are starting to look out. I believe that was an investment sale, but you can check on that one. 360 Civic Center Drive in Augusta sold for $1.75 million. This was brokered for medical cannabis by Chris Pazik and Mark Fishman. And subsequently, Mark turned around and leased out 17,000 square feet for the cannabis industry, and he brokered that lease deal with Dennis Wheelock. Oh, shoot. How do I go back? There we go, sorry. Dennis Wheelock brokered 396 Brunswick Avenue in Gardner. It's a $500,000, $550,000 retail deal. And some significant lease deals that were done at 109 Capitol Street in Augusta. That development deal, the development site sold for $1.15 million. Chris Pazik brokered the development site. Subsequently, the developer there has turned around and leased 108, or is building and leasing 108,000 square feet for the new DHHS office and 26,000 square feet for the office of the Maine Public Employee Retirement System. So on the development side, I mean, it's a pretty significant development. It's right in the heart of Augusta. And that's being developed by Virginia-based developer FD Stonewater. In Gardner, this was some you talk about markets that, may not have this, developments that may not have the size or the impact of other markets. Development in Portland might not be the same impact, but Gardner has the business park at Libby Hill. They just put 23 acres under contract to Auburn Asphalt, and Developers Collaborative continues the development at TW Dick. They've cleaned that site up, and that is a campus-style housing and medical office complex. And Dennis Wheelock was great enough to send me the information on Stevens Commons in Hollowell. Again, not necessarily the biggest market in in Maine with Hollowell, but this development is going to have a big impact in that town, and then spur other stuff in the immediate area. This 35-acre site consists of 8 mixed-use buildings, and there's going to be 2 land parcels that are available for sale. The buildings are themselves are available for sale or lease. And the current 2 buildings in the front are already done and sporting a 70% occupancy. The city stepped in and put skin in the game, as we talked about earlier, with a $600,000 bond issue. And the developer was also nice enough, Matt Morrow, donated a piece of land on that project to the city of Hollowell for the construction of their new fire station. So, talking about projects with a regional impact, we also have to discuss what Colby College is doing on Main Street in downtown Waterville. Waterville is an economy, 15,000 people call that home. Again, 2 colleges, Colby and Thomas, 2,800 students. Some significant transactions throughout the greater Waterville area. 10 Water Street in Waterville. That was the leased-in mill building. CBRE, several brokers from CBRE brokered that deal for just over $20 million. Skip KMD 251, that was reported as sold in 2017. I got subsequent data after that actually closed in 2016. That was 2 retail projects that sold. John Gendron brokered the net leased Rite Aid at 210 Main Street in Waterville for $12.5 million. A couple of smaller deals. 977, again, Justin talked about the industrial market. 977 River Road in Waterville. That saw 76,000 square feet of industrial space leased this year, thanks to the efforts by Greg Perkins. Tom Dunham brokered a couple of different transactions in there. 173 Main Street in Waterville, they leased 5,100 square feet of office space. And then Greg Perkins had another 2,200 square feet of mixed-use space that he leased. This all stems from what I would classify, Colby College and the Alphon Foundation's development for the downtown. It's a $25.5 million residential complex on Main Street being developed. This includes a 100,000 square foot building that's going to house 200 students, 8 faculty members, and have 7,500 square feet of retail space. There's a 42-room boutique hotel being constructed on the site of the former Levine's clothing store. And the $5 million was invested in the Haynes building at 173 Main Street. And we heard earlier talk about CGI, a Montreal-based IT company, that's going to be the first tenant in there that's pledged to put 200 jobs within 4 years. That project will also house a couple of Colby or some Colby faculty as well, and have 2 separate 2,500 square foot level retail units. It's a lot of data, a lot of space. So we'll get briefly into the projections. Where does Kevin see things going for 2017 into 2018? In Greater Lewis and Auburn, I'm going to continue to talk about the Riverfront Island. There are still projects available there. That's the 77 acres of land in downtown Lewiston. It's bordered, it's got waterfront bordering the river, canals, and is serviced by several different parking garages. I think you'll see more projects like Maple Way Dental that owner-occupied purchased, renovation and rehab of downtown buildings. I think we're going to continue to see some infill of some niche retail. I will just put a shameless plug. We really could use a good coffee shop in downtown Lewiston. So coffee by design, anyway. I think we'll see some of that niche retail pop up down there. I think we may even see some continued ground-up projects start, at least in the planning phase. The Hartley Block project probably took a couple years to get to fruition, but I believe the steel's being delivered next week. We're going to see continued demand in the industrial market. I mean, Justin talked about that. I will just put a shameless plug. I mean, you can get from Lewiston, Auburn to downtown Portland in 25 to 30 minutes. So we have low land costs, the rising demand. Rents are stable. I think you're going to start to see some speculation. Last year, I said 2017, we were going to see speculation on the industrial market. I was off by a year. We've got 20,000 square feet on spec being started in 2008 in the spring, and that is industrial space that's going up. Central Maine as a whole will continue at a steady pace of deals, despite what we talked about in the beginning. I've always said this, market knowledge is key. There are still pockets of opportunity, but I think all sectors overall of 2018 are going to benefit and continue to increase. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you today, and I want to thank you all and wish you all a prosperous 2018.